You've heard the saying, there's no such thing as a bad question. But in retirement planning, some questions are definitely better than others. The way you frame your question often determines the quality of your answer, and in some cases, the quality of your retirement.
It's easy to get lost on the way to retirement. Things like taxes, improper planning, and excessive market risk can all lead you astray from your goal of a successful and happy retirement. That's where Liz Whittaberry comes in. She's a holistic financial advisor and the founder of Best Path Advisors, and she can help guide you to a better financial path. This is Retire on Your Best Path with Liz Whittaberry.
Hey everybody, welcome in once again to another edition of Retire on Your Best Path with Liz Whittaberry, founder and financial advisor at Best Path Advisors. And we got a two-parter. We're going to do, why better questions maybe build a better retirement. And so we're going to break down 10 questions for you to think about. We're going to do 5 on this episode, and we'll do 5 on a future episode here in a couple of weeks. So if you are not subscribed to the podcast, make sure you do. And you can find all that information at bestpathadvisors.com, along with a wealth of information that Liz has for you. You can check out the Good Stuff tab, her YouTube channel, as well as get some time on the calendar with her as well. Again, at bestpathadvisors.com. And so, Liz, let's have a good conversation this week. How are you?
I am good, and I'm looking forward to talking about this because I get a lot of questions when people come into my office.
Oh, yeah. I mean, and everyone has, I think, questions, and sometimes they're a little afraid to ask them. Sometimes they're unsure how to ask them. And sometimes they just kind of go with the, low-hanging fruit, I suppose. But maybe, thinking about a different way to phrase those questions maybe could lead to, better end results, right? And so
absolutely.
So
and I always tell people, ask every question that you have.
For sure.
I do believe there's no bad question. And I say, ask it more than once. Like if you see me and then 6 months later, that same question comes to mind, ask it again. Let's talk about it again until you're really comfortable with it.
Yeah, exactly. So let's dive right in and let's see if we can reframe some of these and maybe that makes a little bit more sense, or maybe it yields a better result, right? That's the idea.
Yeah,
so
help people.
Yeah. So how much money do I need to have saved in order to retire? Pretty standard question, pretty standard way to phrase it as well. But what's maybe a better train of thought?
Yeah, the better way to think about it is how much income am I going to need? And then how much savings do I need to have in order to give me that income? I've met people that have said, okay, I've hit $1 million so I can retire. And yes, that's true if you have $1 million lifestyle. Like what that $1 million is going to provide, that's going to cover exactly what you need. And if it's not enough, then no, you're not ready at $1 million. You might need 2 million or 4 million. You might need less. So a lot depends on what you need. And then as far as income, and then what do you need in order to provide that? So what's your number is really the question.
Yeah, and we do get kind of focused on how much do I need to have saved, right? And sometimes we don't pay attention to the fact that it's really the income, it's really the monthly amount we're talking about that we need to get by on. And sometimes that leads us to, when we start thinking about the income, we start thinking, well, if we trim a little here and there, we could make that number work, and then, but is that really the retirement you want, right? So
right. And you've got to think about the income you have from other sources, as well as how you're willing to invest your money in order to provide the income gap. All of those things play into how can you fit that plan together so that you have exactly what you need for your situation.
Yeah, exactly. All right. So that's the first one, right? So second one, should I get long-term care insurance or just roll the dice? And I think with this one, Liz, it's kind of funny and it's kind of not, because a lot of people do feel like that. It's so expensive. I'm just going to take my chances, right? And hopefully nothing happens. So, but what's a better way to kind of think about the long-term care conversation?
You should actually think about what your options are and how could you cover long-term care expenses if that were to happen, because once you get down the road and you've, let's say, rolled the dice and you do end up needing long-term care, then you're stuck with whatever options you have at that point. So before you hit retirement or early in retirement, whatever point you're at, just think about what those options are. And are you willing to have whatever the outcome of the option you choose, are you willing to have that outcome? If you're thinking, I'm going to use my home equity, you can't then also say, well, I want my kids to get my home. You've got to be willing to stick with whatever those options are. I recently had a thank you from somebody that had purchased long-term care a long time ago, maybe through work, and the cost was going up significantly. And they had found me on maybe YouTube or someplace. And I said, it's still quite inexpensive compared to getting a new policy right now or compared to the other options. And they decided to keep it for a while longer. Well, then within a couple of years, they needed it. And so
Yeah.
he sent me this thank you to say, I'm glad that you kind of took the emotion out of that decision, because spending a few $100s more than what we were spending is now saving us thousands and thousands of dollars in healthcare costs, because it's coming in and helping pay for these needs that we now have.
Yeah.
So I'm not saying that everybody should have long-term care. A lot of my clients don't have it, but we do talk about what are the pros and cons of all the ways that you pay for it or could pay for it. How would that impact you? How would it impact your spouse? What is the end result of that? So that it's at least a decision that's been made with some really good analysis, not just, rolling the dice. No, that if you haven't really thought about it, you're just saying, oh, I'm going to roll the dice. I haven't seen anybody in my family get long-term care, then you may regret that later.
That's a great point, right? And so it's certainly, and I get it, it's scary and it's expensive and it's talking about a
Yes.
subject that's not, that makes you think
Not
about,
fun.
makes you think about your own mortality and, all those pieces. But knowing your options, at least learning what options are available to you, is certainly got to be a better way to get a better framing of the question than just, well, I'll just, roll with it. Whatever happens, happens, right? So we all know that's not a good idea. So, all right, number 3. How can I get the highest possible return on my money? And when the market's screaming along, boy, that's certainly easy to get sucked into that one, right? How can I get the most bang for my buck?
Yeah, that's what everybody would love to have the answer to. And especially, can I do that with no risk?
Right,
Can I
right.
get it guaranteed highest return someplace? But, I think the better thing to remember is what Will Rogers once said. It's less about the return on your money and more about the return of your money, or keeping what you've saved, not losing what you've saved. So you want to make sure that you're thinking through all the sides of that. So the question would be, how do I make sure my money is returned to me? How do I make sure it's doing what I needed it to do and I'm able to keep it? When I'm helping people put together their investment plan, I'm looking at what their goals are, because what really matters is their goal. How much do they need to earn on their money to achieve that goal? And how can we do that with the least amount of risk? We don't want any excess risk that we're just taking for no reason. But we also aren't trying to just beat an index, because just trying to beat an index doesn't really necessarily line up with the goal that you have. So it's important to look at, what do I need this money to do for me? When do I need to have it do that for me? What's that timeline? And how can I achieve that without increasing my risk excessively, taking the right amount of risk? On this topic, I also want to say, you got to be careful of the promise of high returns, because there can be a lot of scams behind that
great
kind
point.
of a
Yeah.
promise.
Yeah,
And
that's a good point. I mean, because so sometimes I think, Liz, we get so focused on, if the market's yielding 16% year to date for the average, why am I not getting that full 16? And it's like, well, because hopefully you didn't tell whom you're working with, I want 100% at risk. Right? And so, yeah, you're only getting 7 or 8, but you also aren't taking as much risk potential. And if 7 or 8 drives your plan in the way that you need to have a comfortable retirement without all the risk of chasing the 16 or the 12 or whatever the S&P happens to be, then why wouldn't you want to think about that? Does that make sense?
right. Yeah, absolutely. And that is absolutely the way that I approach it with my clients, to say, what do you need your money to do for you? And how can we make sure it's doing that in the best way possible with the right amount of risk for your situation,
Yeah.
so that you can achieve your goals?
Yeah. I mean, it's like if you're a sports fan, right?
Yeah.
If your team's ahead, you're like, stop getting aggressive with your play calling, be defensive, right? So sometimes it's okay to be defensive with our money too. So, okay. Number 4, where can I pay the lowest fees for financial advice? I want to keep my fees down, Liz, but I also want good value, right?
Yeah, and that is the better question. Where do I get the best value for the fees that I'm paying? Because low fees doesn't necessarily mean good value. High fees doesn't necessarily mean good value.
That's true.
What you want to be looking at is what's going to actually bring value to your financial life. So, do you need tax planning, estate planning, income planning, college planning? Are you looking to figure out how to give some of your assets away to charity or to family? What are those things that you're needing, and who can help you do those in the best way possible, give you the best advice for that? That may be a lower fee, a higher fee, but you've got to find the person that really lines up with the kind of advice that you want, because the things that are going to bring highest value to you may not even be the things that are on your list. A good financial advisor is going to bring some insights and some clarity in all of these messy moments that you're going to have ahead of you, and will help you from making mistakes that you wouldn't have even known about. So finding a good advisor, somebody that you can trust, that gives you good insights, that you can talk to, that's where you should focus. And then look at those fees. If they're not excessive, then that's a good trade-off.
Yeah, I mean, in the DIY world here lately, Liz, I mean, like even the lowest one out there for DIYers is like Vanguard, for example, right? And even Vanguard publishes their thing, periodically. That's like, hey, look, even though they're the cheapest option, a lot of times they still say that, financial advisors bring value to the table. And sometimes, and they have kind of a breakdown on all that good stuff. And I mean, even that should kind of show that, while you want to make sure that you're getting, what you're paying for, because there's nothing, nothing's for free. We all know that. But again, don't just chase the lowest fee. And to your point, don't just chase the highest fee. Find the right services that's bringing you the right value for what you need.
Yeah, that's what you need to do. You need to make sure that you're getting the guidance that you need to make all the decisions that you need to make in the very best way possible.
Yeah, and not just your portfolio either, right? Like that's where people sometimes think, well, I'm getting the advice on my portfolio. Well, what about Social Security, and long-term care, like we just talked about, and so on and so forth.
Yeah, and I'll talk with people that are do-it-yourself investors, and they want to get some input, pay me to do some financial planning. And what I find is that in those conversations, there are things that they've never even thought of because they didn't even have an idea that it existed.
Right. Yeah. Yeah.
I mean, and if you don't know that it's a thing that you could be doing to improve your situation, there's no way to do it.
Exactly. I mean, we were talking about income earlier, and it's like, well, how you take your income and so on and so forth could affect your, Medicare surcharges. My what? Your IRMA. My what? Right? So there's all these little hidden things that, again, working with a financial professional is going to help you with. And that's why we're talking about, looking for better ways and better questions to ask when seeking financial advice. We'll do one more for this episode, Liz, and then we'll come back and do 5 more on the next one, if that works for you.
Sounds great.
Yeah. So let's do number 5 here. Let's talk about taxes. What can I do to pay, less or the lowest amount in taxes? And we certainly all want to do that. I mean, unless you're like crazy patriotic and want to pay, double your fair share, which nobody wants to do that. But we do want to be efficient, right? So what's a better way to think about it?
Yeah, instead of thinking, how can I pay the very least amount this year? Think, how can I save on taxes over my lifetime? How can I minimize my lifetime tax bill? Because paying the least amount this year may increase your lifetime tax bill by making you pay more later, by pushing future income up into much higher tax brackets. So even though it sounds counterintuitive, you want to make sure that you're paying the right level of tax now, this year, that keeps you on a good path over your lifetime to pay the least amount of lifetime tax.
Right. Yeah.
And that makes a huge difference. When I run numbers
Mm-hmm.
and projections and show people the impact on their plan, and that by paying a little more now, we're actually saving hundreds of thousands of dollars in tax over their lifetime.
Right. And that could make or break a retirement.
It's not what you expect to be told, pay more tax now, you're going to pay less over your lifetime, but it makes a huge difference in not only what people have for themselves, but what they leave to their heirs.
Yeah, exactly. So asking better questions hopefully can get you better answers and better results when building a retirement strategy. And that was our conversation this week with Liz. And of course, we're going to do 5 more on our next episode. But if you need to have those conversations or you'd like to talk about those questions, again, there's no bad questions. It's just a matter of getting them out there, getting them asked, getting them answered. And reach out to Liz at bestpathadvisors.com. That's bestpathadvisors.com for some time on the calendar with her. And don't let the holidays run around the holidays right now, Liz. We don't want people to just say, well, I'll get to it, right? Because sometimes we don't get to it. So, reach out to her. Get some time on the calendar for a time that's convenient for you, right?
And the reason that we have these conversations, you and I, and that I'm open to people contacting me is we want people to have the very best retirement that they can have. We want to share the information that will help them know what they need to know.
Yeah,
That's
exactly.
why we're doing this.
Exactly. Yeah. Well, and actually, we're taping this one just about a week or so before Thanksgiving. So happy Thanksgiving to you, Liz, and all of our listeners out there.
You too.
Yeah.
You too.
Hope you guys
Thank
enjoy.
you, everybody, for joining us.
Absolutely, yeah. Each and every week, not every week, but every couple of weeks, twice a month, we try to bring you some good content. And again, if you need to subscribe to that or haven't done so already, please consider doing so on Apple or Spotify or whatever option, podcasting option you like using. You can also check out Liz's YouTube channel as well. And again, all that information is at bestpathadvisors.com. And we'll see you next time here on Retire on Your Best Path.
The preceding program is sponsored by Best Path Advisors, which is solely responsible for its content. Securities offered through J.W. Cole Financial, member FINRA SIPC. Investment advice offered through J.W. Cole Advisors. Best Path Advisors, J.W. Cole Financial, and J.W. Cole Advisors are unaffiliated entities. The opinions expressed by Liz Whitberry should not be construed as specific tax, legal, or investment advice, nor as an offer to buy or sell any securities mentioned herein. Neither J.W. Cole Financial nor its representatives provide legal, tax, or accounting advice. Persons who provide such advice do so in a capacity other than as a registered representative of J.W. Cole. Investing is subject to risks, including the loss of principal. Due to volatility within the markets mentioned, opinions are subject to change without notice. Information is based on sources believed to be reliable, however, their accuracy or completeness cannot be guaranteed.